All right, guys. Now we're going to talk about the physical structure of the heart, the layers of the heart that the heart is made up of. The heart is mainly a muscular. It is a very muscular organ. Its thickest layer is made of muscle, but it has some other layers as well. And then we'll talk about how we supply blood to the heart muscle itself, because the heart is going to use a lot of oxygen and do a lot of contracting, so that a heart blood supply is very important. Okay, so we'll talk about in this order. First, we'll talk about the layers of the heart, and then we're going to talk about how we get blood to the heart muscle, and then how we get deoxygenated blood from the heart muscle back into the heart so it can recirculate and get reoxygenated. So here is the heart sitting in the chest, and let me get my little pointer here. Hey guys, give me some feedback on these lectures. Let me know if you like when I use a pointer or the pen or the highlighter better. We're going to use the laser pointer for right now, but again, let me know what you think is best, or if there are certain ones that are more helpful in different times. So here's the heart, and we can see the heart sitting in the center of the chest. Here is the right lung, and here's the left lung. As you can see, the left lung is actually a little bit smaller. Here's our diaphragm underneath. So you get this very muscular heart. The aorta is coming out over here, and then the vena cava are dropping back in here to the right side of the heart. And then here are our pulmonary veins actually heading out to the lungs either side. So talking about the pericardium is the outer layer of the heart. So the heart is enclosed within a tough sac of connective tissue called the pericardium. The pericardium is important because it holds the heart in place and protects it, but it also helps to restrict heart movement. We are playing Mr. Incredible over here, guys, but he's cut in Spider-Man's web right now. It's very, very exciting stuff. So our pericardium, you can see it's shown right here as a bright outer layer, and we'll see some more detail on this in a minute. It's important because it restricts the heart movement. The heart is a big bulging organ that's getting filled with blood all the time, so we really need to restrict its movement with that pericardium. And it also decreases friction during contraction, so that the heart, we wouldn't want the heart rubbing up right against the lungs and rubbing up right against the lungs here in the diaphragm here, because as we talked about when we talked about serous membranes earlier in the semester, that would cause friction and problems with function very quickly. Here's our pericardium. I'm going to hop over here, and I think we'll use let's try the highlighter. I like this highlighter. Okay, so here's our pericardium. In our pericardium, we have two layers. You've got the fibrous pericardium, which is right over here. And of course, I have my little brackets here, but here's our fibrous pericardium. We can see there's our fibrous pericardium. Uh-oh, I used the pen, not the highlighter. Fail. Okay, so here's our fibrous pericardium. It's the outer layer of the pericardium. It's made of dense connective tissue, really tough connective tissue. Here's what we call the parietal layer of the serous pericardium. So the parietal layer of the serous pericardium is this layer right here. It's the outside layer of the serous pericardium. And then we're going to have our pericardial cavity in the middle, and then we're going to have the inner layer, or what's called we got the pericardial cavity in between, and then we have the visceral layer of the pericardium right here. It's called the visceral layer of the serous pericardium specifically, which is also going to be called the epicardium. You guys will be very upset to know Mr. Incredible's legs just fell off, but don't worry, I'm putting them back on. Here you go, buddy. Okay. So what layers do you see? Uh-oh, so I just told you what layers you see, but we have multiple layers here. We have our fibrous pericardium, which is made up of dense connective tissue, as we said, and the serous pericardium. So remember we talked about serous layers early on. The serous pericardium is a double layered covering. The inner layer, that visceral layer, is going to adhere directly to the myocardium, and then the parietal layer of the serous pericardium is going to adhere directly to the fibrous pericardium. So we can see those right here as well. All right, so we have a parietal layer and our visceral layer. Let's click back to that real quick. I'm going to grab my pointer here and make sure that we understand what we're talking about. Here's my little pointer. Okay, so just as a reminder, we have a 3-layered structure here. We have our fibrous pericardium on the outside. We have our visceral serous pericardium on the inside, and the serous pericardium has 2 layers. It has the parietal layer on the outside, and the visceral layer on the inside, and in between there is the serous fluid, which is going to prevent friction. All right, moving on. Here's our heart wall, and as we said before, our heart wall is really muscular. It's made of that cardiac muscle tissue that we talked about before. We have three layers to the heart, the wall of the heart. We have the epicardium, covered on the outside by simple squamous epithelium, and then we have areolar connective tissue and fat that's helping to hold those together. And this makes up the epicardium, which is also the same as the visceral layer of the serous pericardium. So we have pericardium, and the inner layer of the pericardium forms that epicardium, which then attaches directly to the cardiac, the muscular wall of the heart, which is called the myocardium. So here's our myocardium right here. We have muscle fibers, right? Cardiac muscle fibers made of cardiac muscle cells. We also have blood vessels running through there that are going to help to supply blood directly to the muscle. We'll talk about where those come from in a minute. And then we have our endocardium. The endocardium is a, I'm going to pull the screen down just a little bit for you guys so we can see it, because screencast does not match up exactly with how I want this to look. So I'm going to pull this down for you real quick. So when we take a look, oh, that's better. When we take a look down here, we have our, see if we can see this, we have our areolar connective tissue, and then the endothelium here on the inside. Let me get my pointer again. So we have our areolar connective tissue, and then our endothelium, which is made of epithelial cells, and that's our endocardium right there. So three layers: epicardium, myocardium, and endocardium. And that's what we're going to want to remember. All right. Let me pull the screen back up for you guys so we can see. Oh, no. Don't want to close anything. Oh, what? Sorry, guys. Hang on one sec. I appreciate your patience during our technical issues. Okay, all right. So we're back on it. I'm not stopping, guys. I'm just going to keep rolling here. So our coronary blood vessels are wrapping around the heart, and they're supplying the heart muscle with oxygen. So they're located in sulci. They're called sulci, S-U-L-C-I. So here's our heart right here, and here is our coronary sulcus right there. And here are coronary blood vessels located in the coronary sulci. So we have coronary arteries and coronary veins that are covering the heart. And here, I like this view a lot because it lets us really see what is going on specifically with these blood vessels. So our coronary arteries are really neat because what they do is they arise and exit directly from the aorta. So they are coming right out of the source for oxygenated blood. And we're going to have a few different coronary arteries that are going to wrap around each side of the heart. And interestingly, when we're doing an ECG to see if someone's had a heart attack, we can use those different levels, the different camera angles of the ECG created by all the different electrodes we use to look at where we might have had a problem, where we might have a blockage in those coronary blood vessels. When we take a look at our coronary veins, see here are coronary arteries. We're feeding blood into the tissue. What we cannot see are the coronary capillaries, but we know that they're there. And then here are coronary veins. They are picking up deoxygenated blood from those coronary capillaries and bringing them back bring that blood back into the heart, and that's going to dump directly into the right atrium via what's called the coronary sinus right here. So when we take a look at our coronary blood vessels again, now we're looking at the back side of the heart. Here's our coronary sinus. Here's our coronary sinus where our coronary veins are draining back in, and that's going to drain directly into the right atrium. So that blood drops right back into that right atrium. There it is. Okay, so this is the end of our second short lecture on the anatomy of the heart. Jump on over to Canvas. Remember, we've got an assignment that'll be due by the end of the week. I don't think it hurts to do it now, or maybe watch this PowerPoint one time more. Maybe listen to it a couple more times if you want to, and pick up some more information. And as always, I appreciate your feedback on how you think I can make these better, guys, and thank you for listening. I'm going to hit the stop button.